Hey folks, so today I had originally intended on doing just a video about complacency, but I think I want to address something else here first. So I belong to a couple different correctional officer groups, and today when I was on Facebook, there was a video posted about the riots in Mississippi. And so I had noticed that the reporter had referred to the officers down there as guards. Now that, to me, is an insult. Now I don't know how anyone else feels, and so I wrote this guy an email and sent him a copy of The Forgotten Cop. And so I had posted to that group a copy of that letter because I wanted to show everyone else that not to be diminished by anyone, you need to go stand up for being an officer. And so the a lot of the officers in that group, I guess we're going to call them officers, because I don't know if all of them are officers, but a large majority of those sent me replies that were saying like, "Who cares?" And that's part of the reason right there, folks, is the "who cares" attitude. There have been a lot of officers who blazed a trail before you and I, who have died, who have sacrificed so much for us to let that go, and for us to let that be diminished is wrong, in my opinion. We can't ever allow ourselves to be put in the position to where we're diminished. So stand up for not only you, but your brothers and sisters beside of you, and don't allow such things. So let me go on to the complacency. I like to tell stories or situations. So imagine this. So you're sitting up in the bubble, and there's a newspaper there, and you're like, "Oh man, it's an easy day. It's boring. It's Sunday, whatever the case may be," and you decide, "Well, I'm going to read the paper today. They're going to see how the Cowboys are doing today, or the Steelers, or whoever your team happens to be." And so while you're down in the block there, the inmate decided today was going to be his last day on earth. He wanted to commit suicide today. And even though you might not be able to see his bunk from your bubble, so let's just say he goes and he gets his blanket and wraps it around his neck, and he tells all these boys in the block, "Hey, I'm not feeling good. I'm not gonna eat lunch today, so I'm just gonna lay up under my blanket and take a nap," which for real is just a cover for him hanging himself. So he pulls the blanket over his head and he does what he's gonna do. So fast forward, the officer does his walkthroughs, and even though it's against policy, he continues to allow that inmate to lay under his blanket and probably a couple of others. And so fast forward to count time, mid-shift count, 11:30. So walks through, both officers walk through, and yet again, they don't enforce anybody to stand up. And that's part of the reason that we make them stand up in the first place, because we're not counting bodies, we're counting inmates. So those two officers, for whatever reason, whether it was they were trained wrong, for they were just lazy, whatever the case may be, they walked through and didn't make that inmate get up. So fast forward on to, let's just say, evening count. None of the other guys in the block, they're not wanting to bother him because he said he wasn't feeling well. So then the supervisors come through to do their evening count just before shift change. Well, then they found him because they're supervisors, so obviously they're going to make everybody stand up. But by this point, the guy's been dead 7, 8 hours, wherever it is, So what happens next is there's an investigation by the state police. So state police are called in and they do their investigation. They're going to pull your body camera, and what are they going to see? They're going to pull cameras from everyone who's around that, whether it be the floor officer, the booth officer, and all that. And what are they going to see? They're going to see the person in the booth who is reading the newspaper and doing the crosswords or whatever it may be. You're going to have to explain to the investigators why you were doing that, why you weren't doing your job, even if you couldn't see that inmate, but yet you were goofing off. And then that officer who was the floor officer is going to have to explain why they walked through and didn't make the guy get out from under his blanket when it's clearly in policy. And also the folks, the two guys or two officers who did the count, who also failed to follow policy by making them stand. So it's just little things like that you need to be aware of. So that's all I've got for you guys. Be safe, and I love you guys.